morning, everyone. Thank you for coming down. We've got a very exciting panel today, and I think just to kick us off, maybe we can go around introductions. I think if the panelists each can just say who you are, what's your background, what's your experience, in particular in the investment world, whether it's startup or from an investor perspective, and and then we can go around and then continue the conversation. So,
hi everyone, I'm Marie in French. I work at Sportec Africa. I'm a junior investment officer at Sportec Africa. So, to give you a bit of context, what we do at Sportec Africa is we invest in Series A and Series B tech companies all over the continent. We have a $145 million fund, and we've been around since 4 years, investing all over the continent with a team of 6 people.
Hi everyone. So my name is Arthur. I'm part of the global network team. We are a Pan-African accelerator, investing and supporting African entrepreneurs across Africa. So as an accelerator, our main job obviously is to create a pipeline for the likes of Mari and Bartek.
My name is Morgan. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a very early stage company called Money 254. We're building a better way for people to search, compare and apply for financial products in Kenya at the moment. And so whether you're looking for a new savings account, a SACCO account, whether you want to compare short-term digital loans, whatever it might be, we've aggregated the entire financial sector into one easy-to-use platform so that you can search and compare these different products.
Hi, my name is Esther Netti, and I work for ANCAP, which is short for Unconventional Capital. I think we are like the new kids in town. I should say I've been in my role for the past three and a half months, so again, like really new to this role. But what we are is a funding platform where we're seeking to revolutionize early stage investing, where we're trying to do as many investments into deserving startups across Africa, between the 10,000 to 50,000 ticket size range.
My name is Simon Gigi. I'm the CEO and founder of Cashback app. We are an app that helps ordinary Kenyans save on their shopping. So we partner up with consumer good companies. They load up their offers on this app, and people go to the store. When they buy these products, they get cash back for those items. Our objective is to try and save like 10% of the basket whenever they go shopping.
So just jumping right into the conversation then, speaking of funding and challenges, I think before we actually talk about the funding landscape or the challenges about funding, I think something that I've seen personally is, what is the right time to go for funding?
So I think, first of all, an entrepreneur is always fundraising, right? That's the key thing. Always, whether it's the elevator pitch, whether it's on a plane, sitting next to someone or whatever, you're always fundraising because you're pitching about your business. The short answer is to say you need to fundraise when you don't need money. That's the short answer. That's the best answer. When you don't need money, that's when you fundraise.
I would advise founders to raise when they're at their peak performance, their really performance peak, because you want to show yourself at your best day, and that's what investors will buy. You need to have solved, for example, I wouldn't advise you to raise before a pivot, or to raise when your pivot is not yet proven, because there is too much uncertainty, and you want to go to market for fundraising when you have solved any issue, when you have found the right positioning, when you have good growth. So this timing question is really critical, and it's also something that we assess as investors, do they have the right fundraising strategy and timing?
So I think as entrepreneurs, one of the things is to really understand the landscape, which is why I was alluding to earlier. Just really understand the investment landscape. What capital is available out there, and what is relevant for your business at any given time. Because I think one of the problems we're seeing out there is people raising venture capital when what they should have raised was, friends and family round or whatever it is. So really understanding the categories of capital and what applies best for your business at any given time.
I think what, especially like this is the side of the house that I understand fundraising from a startup perspective, and what they're looking for, right, is a couple of different things. Is confidence in the size of the opportunity that you're going after, confidence in the approach to the opportunity, and that the approach that you've taken is the right approach to solving that, and then how much validation or like layers of risk you've removed in order to get into that, and proving that that's the right way to go. And so, depending on where you are in that journey, you can always, or you can nearly always fundraise, especially where the market is at the moment, and how much you've gone towards proving one of those things or all of those things depends on the price that you're fundraising, basically, which determines obviously how much money you're going to raise or how much control you're willing to give away.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's very interesting. I hope you know. Please be noting your questions, and we'll open it up shortly to you guys. So okay, so I'm an entrepreneur. I've reached the stage where I think my business can raise. It makes sense to raise. What next? Where do I go? Where, you know, as an entrepreneur, I can Google things, but what is your take on what next?
Actually, it's the wrong question, because you should have prepared for your fundraising months ahead, the moment when you're actually fundraising. And it's not like, okay, I want to go to market, what do I do now? No, it's like I've been nurturing relationships with investors and with people within the ecosystem for months now, and I've been building the right pipeline of investors, and so that I'm able, once I want to fundraise, to go straight, like I know in this fund I need to talk to person A, to person B, and I have different plans, you know.
So I just want to touch on the relationship point, because I think it's very easy to say build relationships, right? But as entrepreneurs, how do I do that? Do I go on LinkedIn? Do I search? I mean, how many cold outreach messages do you guys respond to and then actually follow on and have conversations? Is that part of building conversations, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, sure. So there's a few ways. One would be perhaps to join a good accelerator like Baobab Networks, you know, where I work. Full disclosure. But other thing is the hustle, right? And how do you do that hustle? Well, you know, yes, you have LinkedIn, you have website. Most VC will have a team page, and you have the contacts, and they won't have the email. But if you're a hustler, you just hustle to get an email. That's called email. It might not work. But the other thing that might work is reach out to a portfolio company of that fund, right? Reach out to the founders. And as founders to founders, typically there is a good relationship, right? Like literally, my name is XYZ, you know, I'm building this. I think it will make a lot of sense to be part of that fund, and I know you're part of it. Could you have a chat first, you and I, just to know what is it? If that chat goes well, and there's a high likelihood that they might make an intro. And again, back to relationship, that's how it works, right? But I'll say it's not easy, especially for African founders on the continent. It's very difficult. But then now, again, where do you look for your money? There's also angel investment. That's another thing we didn't talk about, right? So it's a very long conversation, so I'll stop there. But basically, it's the hustle and going for it.
It's just getting out there and you know, and I'm not being paid to say this, but places like Nairobi Garage are perfect to meet other founders. No, but generally, I think that's the point, right? It's just go out there and start to have those conversations, and it'll help. How did you find your main investors for your round? How did you get in touch with them?
So we first did the pilot, and during that pilot phase, I basically reached to as many people as I could, mainly from my network first, and then it's through the network I got introductions to VC and so on and so forth, and then eventually there's a piece on cold calling. Of course, you need to do a bit of cold calling too. But what I saw work best was during that pilot phase, you would check in with multiple people, so many coffees. But the idea is to show them a bit of progress. Because at the very onset, especially in this market, like getting investments using just a PowerPoint is a bit challenging. They need to see a product, they need to see some users, they need to see a bit of growth. And that's how we go to that level.
I think what we're hearing here is something I say time and time again. Fundraising is a full-time job. It's not that thing you do, you know, and I think that's what has been clearly communicated by the panel here. Two things, and Simon walked in just as I was saying this is why I just said, you know, he's covered it clearly. Leverage your network. So your network is your fellow entrepreneurs, If you have any angel investors in your business or any high net worth or anybody who has some significant, who's significant sort of like profile or, significant in the industry that you're in, leverage those networks because they know people who would be interested in funding your business. And the next thing is, or the last thing rather, is something that's really key right now that we didn't have back in the day, over 10 years ago when I was trying to fundraise, is data. There's so many articles right now and directories being built showing who's investing in what. Go into Brighter Bridges website, they have a full directory of investors. Go into LinkedIn, follow Maxime Bayan or Max Cuvelier, the two Maxes. They have a directory of investments that have been done and they've categorized sector. We didn't have that back in the day. Back in the day, you just go, talk to anybody. The wrong investor, the wrong ticket size, the wrong stage. And that can be very frustrating because if you talk to the wrong investors over and over again, you'll think there's something wrong with your business.
Well, I think especially where Simon and I raised pre-seed very early on in the business, the likelihood of somebody going to invest, they either need to understand the market or they need to understand you or to know you. And if they don't have context on either of those things, then if they don't have context on either of those things, then they need to be rich enough that it doesn't matter, basically. And that's the only way you're going to get their money. We went out first, we tried talking to US investors. I was just telling this to Art. One of the first conversations I had was a guy sitting in SF. And we thought we'd gone big on the market size at like $4 billion. And the guy was like, I'm not going to get out of bed for $4 billion at a zero. And then his next point was, also, the only thing anyone understands about Kenya is M-Pesa. So you need to tell me how you're going to be M-Pesa, but better. And I was like, well, I'm not. And so there's just a very clear, immediate misalignment. He didn't know us, he didn't know the market. And so from there, we became a lot more strategic about how we approached the early investors that we were looking for. And we actually broke it down into a couple of different groups.
Great. I know the audience must be itching to start with their questions. Hopefully, this first part of the conversation has been insightful and has given you some food for thought. So I think let's open it up, please.
Hello everyone, my name is David. I am from a company called Ante Africa. My question is, what is it that you should ask investors at whatever stage you are in?
One question that somebody told me to ask to investors was, what would you need to see our business do over the next 6 to 12 months that would make you excited about this opportunity? And if investors, having spent the time talking to you, are just like, well, grow, or it's not a very nuanced answer, then they're probably not massively interested at that point in pursuing the conversation. And I think that's actually held true. People who have a very good very good answer to that, and they're like, well, actually, if you can achieve these milestones and get to here, then I think this is going to be something really exciting. And so that's something that we always ask future or potential investors when we're in those early conversations.
So I think we're at the stage where someone called it the coffee stage. We keep going for so many coffees with potential investors. And one of the questions that has been coming up has been, are you first-time founders? So my question would be, does being a first-time founder put you at a disadvantage in raising funds? And what can you do to put yourself in a better position?
Just to reiterate what he was saying is the due diligence of that first an incubator. So there was a time, again, so I've been in this ecosystem for a while, right? Incubators and accelerators, quite a number of them hadn't really, even for themselves, figured out their value proposition. So if you talk to some of the earlier startups, you'll find that the ones that were probably about maybe 8 to 10 years old right now, there was a time when what would happen is that they'd end up hopping from one to the other, not knowing essentially what they're gaining. So they'd be at, the one on Mombasa Road, then one on the Nana Road after 6 months, and the one that gives $50,000 at the end of the program that used to be in Kilimani. So I'm not going to mention names, but you know what I'm talking about, right? So they spend another 2.5 years bouncing from, because you're not sure what is it that they're offering. The difference is right now, I think there's more of a clarity in terms of which entities and what it is they're providing. So you really need to understand, again, your business and what value do you need. Accelerators in Kenya, going back to Kenya context, is not all of them provide funding. So are you looking to get an investment at the end of this process or not? Are you just looking for some business skills and connections? Look for just have a list of sort of like the needs that you have, your business, then do your due diligence, and then essentially have a right fit. Try not to do the hopping, which I think is happening less now.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Lynn. I work for a company called Impact. It's a social business NGO, and we work with ventures who are supporting bottom of the pyramid individuals. We have this, when I say we, I mean Africans or maybe Kenyans, tendency to invest in land, to invest in property, and not really ventures such as, Simon, you're very lucky to have people who just saw your venture and you're able to pitch to them and they saw it and they put money in. Is there anything that can be done to start changing this narrative that, putting money in land and anything else is fine, but we can actually start putting money in other things such as ventures and they can be profitable?
So I pitched to a couple of local angel investors, or rather people who have a bit of money, and I thought, why don't you just put a small chunk in the business? And it's a hard sell, and now in hindsight I understand. It's resources competing. Why do I efficiently put capital to get the highest return? And even the few that's invested, there's a bit of education. Like we did our round using a safe. Explaining a safe was such a big mission. Give me your money and then we'll agree on this valuation that only materializes once a price route comes in. So it's a bit of education, and I think we need to continually do that. And whenever you get a chance, you need to educate people. But I think after convincing, some did invest, so it's possible.
Hi, my name is Matthew. I'm a lawyer by profession. I've seen a couple of startups. I work with a lot of startups. I've seen them go through the seed stage, a bit of the pre-seed, and rarely a Series A, and hardly ever a Series B. So I guess that's my first question. Is it a question of the market? Is the market too small for you to justify further rounds of investment? Or is it a problem of the team? Is it a problem of understanding the problem? So that's my first question. Which kind of segues to my second question, because we've seen a couple of VCs now moving towards a venture studio model, which is where you actually identify the problem and then you begin to constitute the team around the problem. And do you think that's the approach that's required for Africa, based on your answer for question one? Yeah.
So, on your first question on the funding gap and the lack of funding and so I think the answer to your first question is actually a few years back there was indeed a gap in funding for later stage, I say Series A, Series B, and when you're at seed stage you're struggling to find you were struggling to find funding. I think it's less and less the case on the continent. Although for seed companies it's still a bit of a struggle, I think. I think today it's less and less the case, honestly. It was a question of how many funds and how many foreign funding also was going to Africa, but I don't think it's the case today.
I think initially I said one of the biggest challenges for startups on the continent isn't funding anymore. Of course, funding is still key, but it's talent. And what I typically tell people is, there's two sort of there's external and internal KPIs, right? Even an accelerator like us or a VC we look at. The external one are the one, growth, GMV, TPV, and number of users and whatnot, right? And traction, and that's very exciting. And many companies have these. But the internal KPIs are equally important. These are made of strong team with strong governance and strong processes. Because ultimately, that's also what satisfies someone to write a 1 million check. What those persons going to do with that 1 million check, right? So that's very important, and that's where you need accelerator or talking to an angel investor or people that really understand early can advise you how to really set yourself for the VC money if that's what you chase. But talent is really key, and I said to your question, talent is a big gap, and as we do more and more, people are trusting African talents to get that 1 million check. Or if not 1 million yet, it's 500,000. But in 5 years, it's going to be a different story. On your second question, perhaps a bit of a bias, but I think, some say you don't create founders, right? Some say that, and I think I believe that. That being said, the only thing I can say, we've seen those model works overseas. I think it's very interesting to apply them here and to see how it's going to go, right? Ultimately, it's not about the brand. It's about, are you solving a big problem? Do you have a good solution? And then ultimately, are people paying for that solution? And the question is not how many. It's not just are people paying, but how many people are paying. So if out of this VC studio or whatnot, very good startup come out, then we have our own answer.
Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you, everyone. I don't know, are you going to say some closing remarks?
Yes.
Please.
Thank you, Kushil. Thank you, everybody, for giving us your time. Thank you especially to our panelists. I'm pretty sure each one of us has taken away something very practical that we can put in place in our business, some tips that you didn't know, some knowledge that you can share. I'm hoping you're going to look for those networks like they recommended. Those networks are in here, so why don't we start in here and pick up a business card, get to know the person seated next to you, what they're working on, who do they know, because that is exactly the kind of networks you need for your fundraising journey. Thank you, our panelists. Thank you for your time, your expertise, your experience. It's very invaluable, and I know I speak for everyone here when I say we really didn't know where we could get all this information. Yes, the resources are available online, but the way that you put it is quite layman, which is what they needed to hear. So thank you for your time.